Welcome, everyone. In preparation for the start of early voting on February 10th, UTC's Mock Go Vote Committee has asked City Council candidates to speak with high school students and college students in Chattanooga, hoping that they'll answer their questions and share their vision for the future of Chattanooga. Joining us is Rachael Torrence, candidate for District 3. We'd like to turn it over to you for a few minutes and introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Rachael Torrence. I'm a millennial, so I'm a newbie to the political realm. I just got really into politics in this past year, so it's something that the events of 2020 has opened up the mind of a lot of people, and I was one of those. Just my family is a mixed race family, and there are things that we don't think about until something happens close to home. And whenever there was an instance with police at Chattanooga, the UTC, it really made me think that it could be my husband, or it could be my 5-year-old. So I wanted to get involved.
Great, thanks for that introduction. And with us, we have one of our students here at UTC, Lola, and I'll have her ask you some questions.
Okay.
Yes, good evening, Ms. Torrence. Nice to see you. Nice to meet you. My first question for you, and my name is Lola, as Dr. Strickler already said. My first question for you is, what responsibility do you feel the government on a local level has to empower and enfranchise marginalized populations in their community, and in this case, your community of Chattanooga?
I think that empowerment is going to be the key. There's no one single solution. So we have to empower those in our community to be able to stand up and let their voices be heard. And I want to amplify those voices.
Okay. So you feel that the government does have a responsibility in empowering those communities, yes?
I do. I don't feel like the government should be as controlling as it is. I think that we need to have more freedom to live our lives how we see fit, as long as we're not hurting someone else. So the government could make a play in that to be more empowering, to raise up those leaders.
Okay, yes. And I will ask you a question later on, because you mentioned on your website and your platform about COVID-19 and masks, and how that has been, you feel like that's been used as a method for the government to control its citizens. So I will touch on that a little bit later. But my next question for you is that you mentioned also on your website that one of your issues that you wanted to address was combating the war on drugs. And so what does the war on drugs mean to you? How would you define it? What is your understanding of it, and how have you seen it become a detriment to your community, if so, and how exactly do you plan to combat it?
So that one is one of my favorite issues. I feel like the government puts a lot of restrictions on things that are individually more harmful to an individual than to a community. And so drugs are one of those things, especially things like marijuana. I don't feel like that should be something that is limited by our government. I feel like there are things that we need to be focusing on, such as murder and theft and crimes that actually have a victim. I don't feel like drugs are one of those. So I feel like if we are able to decriminalize things like drugs and things like sex work with consenting adults, then they're able to find help that they need without feeling like they're going to be in trouble.
So yes, okay, so I would like to probe your mind a little bit further about the understanding of the war on drugs, because I don't know if, and correct me if I'm wrong, because this is just me talking here, but I saw it more to be the war on drugs to be within a community, like it dates way back to government kind of inadvertently funneling drugs into like marginalized communities, and then allowing it to continue and perpetuate a cycle of disenfranchisement, and then leading to mass incarceration. But it's a cycle that continues within certain parts of the community, usually less affluent, and quite frankly, like predominantly communities of color. And so that is my understanding of the war on drugs. But if this does not correlate to your understanding, I would like to get a better understanding of what yours is, because it sounds kind of different, and it sounds kind of like if that is not, like if a vision of what the problem is not clearly addressed and stated, then oftentimes the road to recovery or the road to combating it can be deviated.
Yes, it actually is part of the it does date back to those issues. So that is another reason why it really does hit home, is because it's hurting communities of color, and it has always been one of those things that is meant to separate those families and to funnel into that incarceration. I that is another reason why I think that it needs to be stopped. It's not something that's helping our community, and if we can find the help that they need if they have an addiction, that will help families in the long run.
Let me jump in there as well. I want to not necessarily follow up, but it seems like you're concerned about drug enforcement and issues of substance abuse in your district. But how else would you describe the state of your district, and how would you like to see that district changed by the end of your potential term?
So our district is kind of interesting because the Hickson area, from Highway 58 to Hickson, is kind of hands off. It's not necessarily one of the districts that we might want to focus all of our efforts. It's kind of one that's the little brother that doesn't do a lot of things to get in trouble. So I would like to support some of the other districts as we build up our district in that. I don't feel like there's a lot going on in our area that we could combat that.
And could one argue that because that you recently became involved in the political arena atmosphere, that perhaps there was more going on than what you saw, but that you're just now realizing it? Or you feel like it's been something that you've noticed for a long time, even before you became involved in politics?
It's definitely something that I noticed, but it's not something that I acted on until this year, whenever there were more instances that came about. I mean, I do have a 5-year-old, so there are things that I might not have thought about when he might have been 2 that I think about when he's 5. So, and then things that I see with how my husband responds to things. It's really been an eye opener. It's something that you notice, but until you take a stand, you don't really see everything that's going on at that deeper level.
As someone that's raising a child in that district, how do you understand the role of youth? What kind of role would you like for your child to have? What kind of role do you see for youth in bringing about change at the local level?
I really appreciate the Hickson Youth Athletic Association. My son actually got to play a little early. He was 4 and was turning 5 at the end of the year. And the coaches there just surrounded those players with love and support. And the way that the coaches responded to them is how I would like our community to respond, to be kind of that big brother or that mentor that lifts them up.
And more specifically, like kind of specifying the youth, how can older youth, like perhaps students in college age students play a role in helping you to bring about this vision that you have for your community should you be elected?
I think everyone needs to be involved. There are many opportunities that we could do mentoring in Big Brother, or just reading a book, or playing with someone that's younger in the community. So I believe that if we all are working together, we can build that youth, that build the world to be a better place for those kids that are coming up.
Well, I do have one more question. It's kind of a big question though, so let's see if we can tackle it in 5 minutes. But in what ways have you reflected upon and analyzed any biases that you have? And how could this affect your ability to be a sufficient leader for your community for District 3? And how do you plan to use said reflection that you've done to make you a more capable and equitable leader?
So everyone has some implicit bias, and there are things that we have to work through. For me, I didn't realize that people of color had as much of an issue as they have until I saw some of the things with my husband and his family. There are instances that my husband has talked about where he said that he was afraid to get pulled over by the police, and that's not something that I ever had to worry about. There are instances where he has been profiled because of the color of his skin, and I didn't realize that until I was holding hands with him and people looked at us in a different way. So there are definitely things that I would use in my own experiences, seeing it firsthand on how he's experiencing life. And I mean, my child has even been a victim of that. At 3, he was told that only white boys could play. And so I would like to see us all come together and be able to love each other in a way that's a person, and we're all here to benefit each other and to be part of the community.
Okay, yeah, those are pretty much the questions that I have.
Thank you. And we're getting up right at the time there. Anything that you would like to add in closing as we wrap this up? We do appreciate your time.
I appreciate your time. It's definitely interesting doing this in the Zoom world. I mean, 2020 has been very crazy, and the start of 2021 has been just as crazy. I really just appreciate what you're doing with bringing the high schoolers up and getting them involved in these areas. I spent my entire summer working with campaigns for ballot access and against civil asset forfeiture, and so those are issues that I spent the entire summer working through on a federal level, and it's something that I really wanted to bring home and do something here. So it's a different realm whenever it's federal versus local. So I definitely want to bring that home.
That's great. Well, thank you so much, and best of luck.
Thank you.
Take care.
Yes, thank you.